I'm Naira.
I'm Ellie.
I'm Nina.
I'm Joanna. This is Politics Under the Microscope, where we explore issues that matter to you by connecting science, policy, and society.
If you look through your closet right now, you'll likely see an array of colorful fabrics with different textures and different styles. We wear clothes every single day, touching these fabrics almost at all times. But what actually makes up and comprises these fabrics at the macromolecular level? We know each piece of clothing typically has a care label, which holds the washing and care instructions and the contents of the clothing. For example, the percentage of cotton, polyester, nylon. What if we told you that these materials have changed over the years? These materials can be broadly classified into one of two categories. 1, natural fibers, and 2, synthetic fibers. Materials such as cotton, wool, and silk are what we call natural fibers. Materials like polyester, rayon, and nylon are called synthetic or man-made fibers. Over the years, there has been a sizable and significant shift away from natural fibers and towards synthetic fibers. But what caused this shift, and what does it mean for the environment? What about our health? What about society? To answer these questions, we are joined today by Drs. Imran Islam and Preeti Arya from the New York Fashion Institute of Technology, or FIT for short, who specialize in textile research development and understand the macromolecular basis of fast fashion. The rise of fast fashion is complemented by a rise in synthetic fibers. Here's Dr. Arya, who gives us the backstory of the usage of natural fibers such as cotton, silk, and wool, and why and how this has switched to synthetic man-made fibers such as polyester, rayon, and nylon.
So the fashion industry is till the early 1920s, I would say it was heavily influenced by natural fibers. But with the innovation of man-made fibers, all thanks to DuPont, we have now several petroleum-based polymers. The initial were the regenerated cellulosics, which we call them rayons. The different types of rayon, there are several different types of rayons or regenerated cellulosics. And then we had the petroleum-based polymers. And because the petroleum lobbying was so strong that it kind of surpassed and in a way sabotaged the use of a lot of natural fibers. So you don't see wool or silk in mainstream fashion other than being used by big brands. But they were made to look bad and they were categorized as very pricey, which isn't the case. But because petroleum polymers were very cheap, 99 cents a barrel for polyester, you cannot compare that with some dollars when it comes to cotton or silk or wool or linen. That was difficult to compete, and the lobbying was not strong for natural fibers. And brands had to make money. So without revenue generation, a business or a brand will not survive. So people, primarily the fashion industry, went with polyester and nylons and different rayons, especially viscose rayon. Those were cheap. They looked like textiles. They felt like textiles in the past, and profit margins were extremely high. With cheap brands, unfortunately, like, I don't know how you pronounce Shine, you will see the similar polymers being used, mostly rayons and polyester. Most of your fast fashion brands uses these polymers, whether they are man-made cellulosics or man-made petroleum-based. So that said, when you are getting a cheap product, and when you can have a very high profit margin in the name of textiles, why sell expensive textiles when you can sell man-made polymers? So that was the reason why so many especially fast fashion brands, and which were not even fast fashion, they had to take that route too to compete with the fast fashion brands.
Okay, so the financial advantage of using synthetic fibers is clear. But what steps of the supply chain make synthetic fibers more profitable? Dr. Islam weighs in here.
So when you talk about the natural fiber, there are some, you have to deal with some natural adversaries like weather. You cannot control that. To grow them, you have to put nutrients, fertilizer, pesticide, that sort of thing. And the cycle is big, anywhere like 6 months to 9 months. Okay, you have to plan. On the other hand, for any petroleum-based man-made fiber, you can make everything in a lab. You don't need like so many skill set. One chemist is good enough with all these instruments and everything. But for natural fiber, every step you need a different skill set. So that's also another part. And it's not quick. The man-made fiber is quicker. You can have this thing right away. You can custom it. You can, let's say, you need a engineered fiber. Engineered fiber means, let's say, you are looking for a hollow fiber. You in the fiber inside you have a hollow space, and that gives you extra level of insulation property. You can do it in the engineered fiber, like the man-made fiber. You cannot do it in the natural fiber. So this kind of, all this variability, these are the important aspect. And also in the manufacturing stage, these are quick. You don't have to do the redo like sometimes for natural fiber, there are a lot to lot variation. Let's say half of the season, there is one sort of weather, and then there is another sort of weather that makes a mixed species or mixed kind of a fiber there. And it is really hard to deal with this for the manufacturer. So basically they have to go through all this trial and error and sampling process.
So on one hand, we mainly use natural fibers, such as cotton, wool, and silk. These take longer to produce and are subject to many more hurdles pertaining to the weather, seasonal variations, and so forth. On the other hand, we have synthetic fibers, polyester, rayon, and nylon, that are faster to produce and therefore more efficient manufacturing-wise and more profitable. But what about the environmental impact? When we think of cotton, we may think of a very popular factoid where 20,000 gallons of water are needed to make a single kilogram of cotton. To put this into perspective, this is equivalent to 800 10-minute showers or filling 500 bathtubs. Isn't this very bad for the environment? Dr. Preeti Arya wants to correct this misconception about cotton.
If cotton is using that much amount of or that much volume of water that you are specifying, it is going into the plant, it's going to the soil, and then whatever is not being consumed is getting evaporated and coming back to the streams and lakes. Okay, it's not that cotton is consuming that much of moisture and it's getting swollen and the lakes and rivers and oceans are drying. No, that's not happening. It's in the ecosystem. So irrigation may require, just hypothetically, even if it's requiring that much volume of water, it's still coming back to our earth. So it's not going, escaping, it's not going anywhere.
But that's not all. What about the health effects? Cotton comes from a plant. It is therefore naturally occurring. The same cannot be said for polyester.
Cotton is a fiber which is made out of 95% at least cellulose. Even if I eat it, I will not die. That is the type of cellulose that my body can process and I'll still be okay. Should I be eating it? No, it's the fruit of a plant. I can and I won't die. So the microfibers of cotton will not kill me, but the microfibers of polyester or nylon or polyethylene or polypropylene or any other petroleum polymer, if not expelled out of my system, will and can create a tumor, will and can create a defective fetus in the body of a female or any individual. Why take the chance? Are we willing to take that chance? I rather have cotton drink that much volume of water, which will still be returned to the planet, and I still can eat that fiber, and the fiber is still biodegradable, rather than go with petroleum polymers, which are not biodegradable, not been proved at least.
But there is one thing for sure, is that any microplastic from polyester, those are carcinogenic.
So why has this conception been perpetuated for so long and so widely? Who benefits when cotton is portrayed negatively? This is what Dr. Arya thinks.
the way cotton has been portrayed poorly by its rivals or competitors is also part of lobbying again. And the 70 years of damage that the petroleum polymers have done is the reason that we don't have winter this year at all.
Focusing on polyester, though, which seems easier, faster, and more profitable to make, and doesn't require the usage of so much water, why then has it been touted as a sustainable solution, a sustainable alternative? In fact, some brands have been advertising their usage of recycled polyester. Is this a meaningful step towards increasing sustainability within the fast fashion industry? Dr. Arya and Dr. Islam correct this misconception too.
None of the companies which are claiming that it's made out of recycled PET, they are not giving any certification for us to be satisfied. Who is doing the vetting? Who is doing the validation? I don't see the third-party agencies or any government agencies saying that it has been recycled. This is this certified, GOS certified, or Blue Science certified, or any XYZ agency certified. I don't see that. The scientists are still at a very developmental stage, very nascent stage, where they are still trying to figure out which is a better way of recycling. There has been literature, don't get me wrong. They have done research and they have succeeded, but when it comes to upscaling, the only process that has been successful is the chemical way of recycling polyester, and of which whatever metric tons of plastic waste that is produced, whether it's PET or whether it's nylon, maybe 1, 2, or 5% get recycled, not all of it. That is not even a scratch, a dent in that entire mass. And that does not...
Pretty, it's 0.07%.
Okay, thank you. See, he's very good with numbers. So that is really bad, and we need to speed up. Can we speed up? Probably not. Do we have the infrastructure to speed up? Probably not. Some countries like Sweden, they have started the process, maybe China, but we still don't have. The way we have manufacturing units, we don't have recycling units. And also, the process has not been vetted. The process is still, it's in a limbo. There are still question marks. So we don't know yet a lot of things. People think, oh, they can melt plastic. No, that does not work. If that was so easy, we would have melted everything and Kenya would not be flooded with all that plastic right now.
In terms of the recycled plastic, so let's say you have some sort of plastic and you recycle them. Basically, they collect this PET bottle and they extrude the thin fiber, or let's say long continuous yarn out of it, and then they reuse for the textile material. Now what next? Can you do it again? Probably not. Do you understand what I mean? So that's one of the things. And again, the percentage as a recycled plastic, I feel like, from all along, like it's kind of a hype, it sounds good. We feel good. Okay, there is a recycled plastic. But if we think about the actually what is the percentage and how much we are basically recycling, and so then if you see the bigger picture, it's not there. It's not even something to mention. It's so little.
Furthermore, what is regulating companies who do label their clothing as recycled? Is there an agency that approves these recycling processes or the usage of this label? Here's Dr. Arya, who argues that not only is this not the case, but also that companies are actually cheat recycling.
There have been even, and we cannot endorse any brand or any company, so I'm just going to say that there have been companies, or at least one company that I know of, had their manufacturing unit for the petroleum polymer and the filament, extrusion of the filament. The polymer gets melted, and then it's being extruded. If we have to recycle it over and over again, the crystallinity gets impacted terribly, and so does the durability and performance. So at least one of the brands that claim to be the recycling of petroleum or polyester, they had their water bottle unit next to their yarn manufacturing company mill. So they are making fresh PET bottles, shredding it, melting it, and again using it for extrusion of the synthetic filament. I mean, that is cheating. That is not recycling. And selling it in a more expensive price or cost in the name of recycling, that is misleading. That is extortion. So we should not be doing that unless and until vetted by a renowned agency. We cannot accept or believe in these claims. We should not.
Clearly, there are a lot of problems here. First, the use of petroleum-based products are not sustainable, despite the polyester-using companies claiming otherwise. Petroleum-based products are not biodegradable, as is the case with natural fibers such as cotton, and are in fact carcinogenic. Clearly, industry is not doing enough to mitigate the environmental and health effects of fast fashion. What do Dr. Arya and Dr. Islam think the industry should do then? Well, one interest of Dr. Arya's is to determine the utility of an additional label attached to clothing garments that detail manufacturing information that essentially goes beyond the current care instructions, fiber content, and the country of origin.
So right now, if you'll see the clothing labels generally have an RN number, the origin of the country, and the fiber content. The entire booklet is on the side with, I don't know, 10, 15 different languages, how to take care of it. But care label is good, but we also want to know the consumer is becoming more and more aware, and we would also like to know how much carbon footprint has this product manufacturer created, or if this manufacturer or the brand has followed the labor laws properly, were the labor paid well, and all these issues like how many days it was manufactured in, and how many greenhouse gases were released or produced. So these kind of information, people want to shy away from it because nobody wants to get involved in such tedious matters, and this can make them liable to a lot of legalities and questions, and nobody wants to get involved. So escapism is the best policy, but now it's time that we start holding or create a product in the form of a label where we can actually cover the entire supply chain in the manufacturing and hold a lot of people responsible and accountable.
This all sounds great, but there is likely to be very little incentive to reveal this information because consumers will likely be deterred when they realize the significant carbon footprint of the garment that they are thinking of purchasing. How then do we make this a reality?
The key players, both from academia, industries, and also government agencies or government itself, will have to sit down and will have to brainstorm and agree upon something that is achievable and that is beneficial to the manufacturer, the consumers, the planet, and everybody. So there is more transparency right now. Just saying the country of origin, the fiber content, the manufacturing units number is not helpful. What do I do by knowing the manufacturer units number? Okay, it will be helpful for maybe the retailer, maybe for the manufacturer, but it's not helping the consumer. The consumer will know what they are paying for is by all the things that I discussed earlier. So it's time that the key players, we sit down and we talk about it.
Dr. Islam gives me an example to better understand.
Ellie, I'd like to give you an example so that you understand also. Let's say the dress you are wearing right now. So that's produced by manufacturer A, okay? There is manufacturer B, produce the same dress but with less carbon footprint. But in order to do that, you have to pay, let's say, $2 more or $5 more. Do you understand what I mean? But how as a consumer you know this thing, like which one is producing this thing with less carbon footprint, or they have a greener manufacturing unit or something? So basically Preeti is looking for that kind of information so that consumer can be informed. So it depends. So in order to do that, all the stakeholders, they have to have the transparency and the traceability.
I then go on to suggest how the FDA and EPA could combine in some way to make a new agency that focuses on the textile industry and related realms. Turning to the government's role, Dr. Islam and Dr. Arya say this about what the government should do.
EPA is a wonderful agency to incorporate, in this particular process. Definitely, they can take a vital role to address, to enhance the sustainability or transparency for the whole supply chain. So yes, all these government agencies. We have another called OTEXA, Office of Textile and Apparel, which is a federal office, and they basically take care of all the exports and imports. But also they can put a cap on, or they can you only one condition you can export or import based on who are taking care of the environment as well. So putting additional barrier. It's not barrier, just one more steps so that manufacturer has to do that. Again, as I mentioned barrier. Do you understand what I mean? This is how everyone looks. So this is not a barrier. This is a necessary steps for the future generation, for the upcoming generation, for the greener world. So even I mentioned barrier. It's not a barrier. It's a necessary steps. So if we think like that, it will be a good thing.
However, what they have found is that they have to initiate such conversations with government officials themselves. They are often unsuccessful when trying to advocate for these issues because the textile industry doesn't receive as much information as other key issues in the US. This is why Dr. Islam is so pessimistic about making policy advances in the textile industry.
I see myself as a pessimistic one, in a sense that we have bigger problem like gun control, So that's the most immediate thing, and we are still struggling with this one. And then if you compare that against this textile material, it will take longer time than that we expect. This is one of the place where I see myself as a very optimistic in every aspect except this particular thing.
So, not only is there a lack of political capital and drive to fix this issue, but Dr. Islam and Dr. Arya also see much pushback from lobbyists and companies, as they have mentioned already. Why then does this pushback exist, and what does it actually look like? What are the barriers that companies face when trying to make a push to be more sustainable? Our next guest, former COO of Timberland and fashion sustainability and investing expert Ken Pucker, explains the problems with expecting the industry to change on its own. Stay tuned for our next episode in our fast fashion series.